選挙運動をしようと思ってこれ持ってきたんだ。あ
あ、これはちょっと違うかも。
Ahem. The cold opener featured a very familiar scene of the Ojamajo versus Reika, though now with the addition of this poor sap caught in the middle. Piece of advice, kid, just turn around and never look back. But yeah, obviously Masaharu here was the spotlight character of the episode, which he further established by becoming the only competitor to Reika's position as their class representative, much to the little rich girl's jargon. And the Ojamajo were in favor of him not just because he wasn't Reika, but also because he was just a good kid who helped out all of his classmates.
はよみんなの名前を覚えられるように座席を書いてくれたり。
Probably should make one of those for Momoko. Sure enough, he later stopped by the Mahodo, and they learned his motivations for running. As it turned out, he wanted to take more initiative after basically being an eternal runner-up, be it in his studies or sports. Really admirable stuff, just showing how earnest this kid was.
でも、マサハルくんならきっといい学級委員になると思うで。
そうかな。
I think I might develop diabetes by the end of this because this kid's way too damn sweet. With that, Reika started launching her campaign with some standard stuff like handing out flyers and of course buttering up the voters. Again, I must emphasize, I try to hold back on the political jokes nowadays, no matter how low that fruit ends up hanging throughout this whole damn episode. In direct contrast, Masaharu wasn't really launching any sort of campaign at all, instead just focused on silently supporting his class. Like again, really admirable stuff there, kid, but you know, if you want to change yourself, maybe you should start by changing everyone's perspective of you by making your good deeds a little more well known. Maybe you need to take some lessons from Miss Monochrome on how to stand out.
いらっしゃいませ。
However, since she wasn't around, the Ojamajo decided to become his much-needed campaign managers. They discussed the campaign more at the Mahodo, much to Majrika's annoyance, who I guess had learned about them wasting all of their spheres in the last episode. And since they were out of them, it prompted the arrival of a certain musical witch who, yeah, I guess we hadn't seen Della in a while, and it is nice to have her back. She also provided a little exposition about how Majiruka, a character who I don't mind never seeing again in the show, was also in the middle of her own campaign for the Queen election. So, in spite of that title, this isn't a monarchy, but rather a democracy? Do y'all just want an excuse to wear that fancy dress? But yeah, that's a plot point for another day, as the Ojamajo figured out their outline for Masaharu's campaign. They started by handing out flyers that listed all of his accomplishments, which further emphasized his eternal runner-up status. Still, it was nothing to sneeze at. I mean, at least you could say he was consistent. Moreover, sometimes you should just aim for second place in some reality shows. They also did something surprisingly advanced for a school election, and took some early polls that revealed that the candidates were neck and neck. Reika still acted confident, but also tried to elevate her campaign with the greatest tool of any candidate, promises, and yes, I'm using the biggest air quotes possible. Sure enough, while all of it sounded good on paper, they were also shallow and would likely have an overall negative effect on the conditions of their classroom. I'm not saying more than I already have, so just get lost. Now, to counter her, the Ojamajo encouraged Masaharu to make his own promises, and sure enough, they were the exact opposite of Reika's, which, yeah, that was a bit of a problem, as while they were all amiable ideals, they also weren't exactly practical for a bunch of kids, and more importantly, not exactly all that attractive to those same kids. Okay, while I'm trying to avoid the political commentary, I do like this message that they're trying to get across about leadership. Reika and Masaharu are examples of two extremes. A self-fulfilling leader who does take the initiative and recognizes the importance of appealing to everyone, versus a very selfless leader who in the long term will likely benefit others, but as a result has little self-confidence and thus an inability to appeal to others. While Reika is clearly the antagonist in this situation with her shallow promises that will more likely get everyone into trouble, I'm pretty sure Seki-sensei's smart enough to catch that they're copying each other's homework. Her campaign strategies are undeniably effective and should at least be partially emulated for anyone who wants to get ahead in life. To put it simply, and using one of my favorite SpongeBob characters,
yes, you just have to learn to be more assertive!
it's just a pity that this episode isn't exactly going to back all of that up, but more on that in a bit. We cut over to the Mahodo, where the Ojamajo were reloading their wands, and wait, their spheres are atoms? So like, are those little wands nuclear powered? Can they pull off explosion spells? Anyway, with their refilled wands, they were ready to counter anything Reika could throw at them. Furthermore, they already had the votes of Kotake, Yada, and Marina. Again, nice to see these characters again, even if it was briefly. However, Reika's next big move was, And if that wasn't bad enough, the Stooges were the main models of those atrocities. Still, the Ojamajo decided to compete using their magic to create campaign goods like a banner and okay, that's not much better.
But I don't want to be a pirate!
From there, they counter with the other major weapon of main candidates, propaganda videos. Yeah, let me just check something. Yes, my blood pressure has definitely risen. Where's the Advil? In the end, the campaigns ended up dividing the class with both sides endlessly defending their respective candidates. However, to further prove he was the nicest damn kid on the planet, Masaharu tried to reunite his class by dropping out. It was undeniably a really touching scene as he volunteered to just be a runner-up again as the vice president of the class. The Ojamajo even recognized the error of their ways in that they weren't exactly doing all of this for Masaharu, but more for just defeating Reika. Honestly, this would have been a nice bittersweet note to end the episode on, showing that Masaharu still needed to overcome his indecisiveness if he wanted to get anywhere, but I guess Reika never learned when to hold and fold them and decided to proceed with the election. Sure enough, after such a rallying speech to a bunch of impressionable kids, Masaharu won in a blowout with Reika only getting 2 votes.
2 votes?
But okay, this also wouldn't have been a bad way to end the episode on a touching note with Masaharu winning and everything. And yet, they still felt the need to end on basically a wah-wah-wah moment, with Masaharu immediately enacting all of his proposals for the class that involved a lot of volunteer work.
It's the living.
I gotta say, this is a pretty meh episode for me. I mean, put aside my aversion for politics aside, this episode was just kind of all over the place. Between the need to spotlight both Masaharu and his opponent Reika, it was sometimes hard to get invested in this plot, not helped by the fact that our spotlight character wasn't exactly all that engaging. Again, Masaharu is a good kid and everything, but that aside, he's also kind of a weenie. I get it's kind of the point to have him being dragged along by the Ojamajo, but even then, Masaharu wasn't actually doing much for his campaign before they got involved. Yes, what he was doing was very amiable and all that, but without even the assertiveness to show that he was helping the class, I really don't understand how he expected to win, and honestly, I think he would have lost if the little witches hadn't stirred the pot a little. Thus, I'm not even really sure what the moral of this one was supposed to be. Was it supposed to show how a class should work together to better each other? Well, the ending with Masaharu's strict rules kind of negated that. Was it just be yourself and everything will work out? Well, again, if that were the case, then he would have lost the election and be a runner-up again. A lot of things just kind of ended up going in his favor, all the while, for as much as a blowhard as she was, Reika was making all the right moves and looked like the better candidate. Again, I think Masaharu is a good kid and that speech he gave at the end was nice, but otherwise, he was mostly just a reactionary character who didn't really justify his spotlight status. As a result, even the Ojamajo were a little less interesting as they didn't get up to their usual antics. I think the things that stood out the most for me were the returning characters and hints at future events, but otherwise, this was a pretty skippable meh episode that at times could be a bit of a disjointed mess. kind of like a real election. Okay, I just had to slip in that one last joke. Anyway, it looks like my big move is going to take place in the middle of May, but before then, I should have part 2 of my Gold Prince review up. It'll likely be the last big video I record at this place, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. Not as though the format of my videos are going to change that much, I'm planning on taking this green screen with me. But still, look forward to it. And until then though, for now my friends, and you know, I think the best kind of campaign shirt is the ones with thumbs up on them. Those are cool.